The last two topics I'd like to look at are the electric utilities and the nuclear facilities. Electric utilities are critical to our national infrastructure. Imagine the issues if the national grid, or part of it, went down. Well, we can see what happens by looking back at August 4th, 2003, and I provided an external link on the website there where you can look at retrospect of what happened in 2003. But with the power being out for 29 hours, we ended up with 11 dead and a 6.4 billion impact on the U.S. economy. What if we had a long-lasting outage? What would that impact be? The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, regulates the national electric utilities. There's an increasing focus on cybersecurity as the threats from external sources have been focused on the electric industry. In 2016, they adopted 7 critical infrastructure protection reliability standards, which originated with the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. And we'll look at those in brief. So, SIP 0036, cybersecurity security management controls. At least every 15 months, utility senior managers should approve the cybersecurity policies addressing employee training, electronic security parameters including remote access, cybersecurity physical security, system security management, incident response planning, incident recovery plans, configuration change management, information protection, and response to exceptional circumstances. So the senior managers are addressing those policies around the security and compliance of the utility in those particular areas where we would normally look to secure not only the facilities but the systems and the data. They should have a security manager to guide the program. So again, you have senior managers who are guiding the program, which is basically the corollary that we saw in other regulations where there was an individual who would be in charge of the program. And since we're looking at all these policies, we can assume, I think quite naturally, that these should be written and well documented. Personnel and training. There should be quarterly training for security awareness, review employees' criminal backgrounds at least every 7 years, and other background checks for individuals who access cybersecurity systems. You should set up a need-to-know access control program, and you should have timely removal of access if someone's terminated or no longer needs to have access to the facilities. Physical security of cyber systems should have a comprehensive plan for physical security of facilities, which includes alarms and access logs, and an escort program for visitors. And again, all should be documented. System security management. Enable only the logical network accessible ports. In other words, there's a lot of ports open by default on most systems when you put them online. And what you need to do is only allow those ports that need to be active. The rest should be shut off. Establish a patching program so that at least every 35 days you're evaluating new security patches, and take other steps to reduce harm, perhaps vulnerability testing. Maintain audit logs and particularly look at failed login attempts, look at any activity from malicious code, look for potential security events, which should then tell you you'll have a security incident and event manager installed, or what we call a SIEM, S-I-E-M, so that you can stay alert on the security events as well as look for potential events that have occurred. There should be procedures around login credentials, so you'll have an inventory of the user accounts, change default passwords, and all the passwords should have a minimum length. Recovery plans for cyber systems should have a framework to create plans for responding to cyber incidents. identify specific job responsibilities for the incident responders, and describe how data will be stored, particularly around any encryption that you might use, how you might segregate your networks to protect against access, describe backup and recovery processes, and at least every 15 months, test the recovery processes and procedure. This can be a tabletop exercise, a paper drill, or a physical switchover of the systems. We used to use this when we had a hot data center environment, so we had a backup and the original systems right there, and the systems were set up so that if we lost access to one, it would immediately go to the other. And every once in a while, we would test it by actually pulling the switch, the power switch, on one set of systems and let it switch over to the other set of systems. And every 36 months, conduct an operational exercise of the recovery process. Configuration change management and vulnerability assessments. These are critical. Develop a configuration change management process and follow it. Usually you set up what's called a change control board so that as changes are anticipated, they're presented to the change control board so those individuals can understand whether there's going to be impacts on their parts of the operation as well as what you're changing. You first want to establish a baseline, though. You need to understand what operating systems you have out there, what software you have out there, what ports you're using, and make sure that everything is patched. And then you can document any changes from the baseline at least every 35 days. And at least once every 15 months, you want to conduct what's called a vulnerability assessment, where you're actually just looking at all your systems and all your networks and looking for vulnerabilities that haven't been discovered or may affect your operation. Personally, I always have the systems folks do those vulnerability assessments every 30 days, particularly against very critical systems, and then a little less often for those systems which are less critical. I would never wait 15 months to do that. And after 36 months, assess the vulnerabilities against your baseline and then reset your baseline. And you should authorize the use of removable media. So if you will be allowing removable media, you need to set up the policy and procedures of how to use that. So these are thumb drives or portable disk drives or whatever. You want to make sure that you authorize their use before they're used on your network, and then set up policies and procedures around their use. And then information protection, data protection regardless of whether the data is at rest or in transit, and prevent unauthorized removal of data from your network. So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, U.S. authorities are deeply concerned about cyber threats to our nuclear facilities. The NRC adopted cybersecurity regulations for licensees of nuclear power reactors back in 2009. However, the concern over cybersecurity capabilities of foreign assets necessitated the creation of the Cybersecurity Directorate in 2013. This oversees the cybersecurity of the nuclear industry. NRC regulations protect nuclear facilities from cyber attacks, reduces likelihood of those cyber incidents, mitigates harm caused by cyber incidents, and a great deal of flexibility on how to draft and implement these plans. It must develop a written cybersecurity plan. Again, the corollary back to what we see in other regulations. But as it compares to other regulatory frameworks, it's actually a much less detailed framework, but it does allow the security manager to implement those controls which are necessary to protect the systems. Personally, I want to make sure nuclear facilities are very well protected. This is the end of Unit 3.